Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. Chris here. For those of you who are new, I'm a holistic health coach and trained chef, and today we are out of the studio and in my home kitchen. It is early springtime, and I don't know about you, but spring is always the time I like to go ahead and declutter pretty much every room in my house. But one of my favorite places to declutter and clean out is the kitchen. As a chef, the kitchen is my happy place. I love creating new recipes in the kitchen. I love creating with my kids in the kitchen, and having a kitchen that is organized and efficient so that cooking happens fast, especially on busy weeknights, is really important to me. And though I do typically keep my kitchen pretty organized, there's always room to declutter. And I believe that in every area of our lives. I'm definitely more of a minimalist by nature, but this year I thought I would bring you guys along with me as I do a little bit of a kitchen declutter. In fact, I am creating a whole series called the Spring Clean Your Kitchen series, which is in conjunction with my Spring Clean Your Kitchen free challenge that is happening over on Facebook. I'm going to go ahead and put the link to that in the description box below if you want to go ahead and join us. We're going to be spending the entire month of April cleaning out our kitchens, decluttering, and reorganizing for a more efficient kitchen. We're also going to be going through our fridge and our freezer and organizing them in a way that works for us and helps to promote living a healthy, balanced life. And we are also going to finish it off by going through our pantries as well, so that we have a pantry that actually works for us, so we can create a capsule pantry, so we can create meals so much easier, so we can stick to our food budget and we can live the healthy, balanced mama lives we want to live. So today, let's go ahead and let's dig in to my kitchen declutter. I'm going to go ahead and give you a tour of the before. I'm going to share with you the different parts of my kitchen, the different zones of my kitchen, and those are all things I'm going to share in way more detail within the challenge and the corresponding podcast episodes. Like I said, link's going to be in the description box to join us for free for that if you want more details. But for now, I'm going to take you through, give you a tour of the before, share some of the decluttering steps that I'm going through, and then I'll go ahead and give you a tour of the after. Okay, here we are. Welcome to my apartment kitchen. This is pretty typical for how it looks. I don't love to keep a ton out on the counter. If I've got dishes, I do have a dish dryer that I keep over next to the sink. But otherwise, this is typically how it looks. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go through each of the major sections, not including the pantry, because I'm going to do that separate. And I'm going to share with you the before, what it looks like, and then we will go ahead and start decluttering. Stepping back and starting over on the far corner of the kitchen, this drawer right here is literally just a junk drawer. I don't think I'm going to be jumping into there right away because it's not really like the kitchen equipment in there. I will get to that one day, but this is probably the first section I'm really going to dig into over here. And this is the dungeon of our containers that I really need to sort out. My 7-year-old does the dishwasher emptying in the morning, and so sometimes she just kind of puts things away, and if there isn't any order that I give her to it, then she doesn't really know how to put things. So I'd like to have a better system for that. Over here on the counter, I have a bunch of supplements and essential oils, and that is something I would like to tackle too, because there's not really much organization to them. And then up here, the first zone in our kitchen is, we've got drink glasses up here. And this is basically, this kind of whole section around the sink is where we have all of the things that we would use for our daily meals up here. This is definitely a cabinet I need to go into because I've got extra glasses up there. I've got smoothie glasses, I've got extra mason jars up there. Yeah, this section definitely needs to be cleaned out and decluttered. And then over here is where we store the majority of our plates. So as I'll share in the Spring Clean Challenge, I organize my kitchen into zones based on what we're using each section for. So because I do food photography, I do have quite a few plates and bowls that we might not use on a regular basis, but I do use them for that. So I'm gonna try and minimize as much as I can while still having the things that I need. Over here, I'll give you guys a sneak preview, but this is the main portion of our pantry. I'm not gonna go through that today because I'll be going through that completely separately, but that's what's over here. And so if I take a step back here, because we're kind of close, this is the counter. I've just got a couple of pantry items on the counter. My Vitamix goes there, my Instant Pot, and over here is just the dishwasher. So it's just those cabinets. I've got the cabinet under the sink, which is actually pretty organized as of now. And then over here is my utensils. So this drawer is like semi-organized. It can definitely still be kind of reorganized, decluttered. I have to decide if it's working for me. With the stasher bags, most of them are in the fridge right now. I have plenty more. I'm not quite sure. I might want to do some reorganizing of that. It works pretty well. It's pretty functional. And then over here is where we have a bunch of like baking items. It's kind of a dark cabinet, so I'll try and get under here. So I have, it's kind of random in here. This is probably the main spot I need to declutter because there's like some containers, there's some baking things, there's some things I use for food photography. I have the coffee grinder down there, and that'll probably stay there just because I primarily I'll grab it a couple times a week and put it on the counter to grind coffee. I've got my daughter's ice cream maker. It's semi-organized, but yeah, it could definitely use some cleaning out. Okay, spinning around to the other side of the room. This section over here is kind of the start of my cooking zone. Over here, this drawer is actually it's almost like a random drawer that I wasn't really sure what to do with for a while, but I've turned it into a lunch packing drawer with a couple of other random things in here, you guys. This is real life. Those are some Valentine's gifts from my grandparents for the kiddos. I've got like random K-cups, even though we don't have a Keurig anymore. I meant to bring those to my mom's house because she does have one. But this is essentially a lunchbox packing zone, which has worked really well for us, but there's just a lot of extra stuff in here that doesn't need to be in there. So I will be going through that and taking out anything that we don't need, but it is fairly functional. My whole goal is just that every area in my kitchen, every zone in my kitchen is functional and helps me to be a more efficient cook and just to live a less stressed life. So down here, I have most of my appliances and things like that. I don't have a ton, but you can see my daughter just threw that on in there. Sure, why not? But there's everything from the toaster oven, which we really need to get rid of, to my slow cooker and my rice cooker, the popcorn maker. This just needs a little bit of a reorganize just to make it as efficient as possible to get things from it, but that's what we got going on there. Okay, in the drawers right next to that, I have the top drawer over here is where I store my knives. I probably have some things in here that I don't need anymore or that don't work anymore, but I don't keep a ton of knives despite being a chef. There is one that's still at my mom's house, but I have a few key knives that I like to use. We've got steak knives in there. I do want to go through that because, like I said, there's probably a few things that we don't use anymore, but that's pretty much, it's pretty effective for what we need it to. Now this drawer is the drawer that definitely needs a declutter and reorganization. It used to be organized and now it looks like this. And this is where we have any of our like measuring cups and spoons and other tools and things like that. So that's when I'm going to be spending some time organizing. And then the bottom here is just the kids' plates. And I will definitely be going through anything that they don't really use anymore now that they're starting to get a little bit older. Coming up from the drawer up to the counter, there is a cabinet up here that's kind of an odd cabinet. I'll show you why. It's just these two really big shelves. I have some cookies up there right now, only because my oldest sells Girl Scout cookies and my youngest was stealing cookies. So we have some like coffee stuff up in the top, and then we just have a couple pots and pans. You'll notice I don't have a ton of pots and pans because I don't feel like you need a ton. Again, I'm all about efficiency, not about being fancy in the kitchen. So I don't know how much organization that needs, but we're going through everything. And then over here on the other side of the counter, this cabinet up here is probably the area that's going to need the most work next to that drawer I showed you. Okay, yes, I have a little bit of a mason jar problem and also a little bit of a mug problem. I try and keep any bottles that I think I might be able to use for things like dressings. I make my own homemade barbecue sauce, salad dressings, things like that, but it's gotten a little bit out of control. Over here is where I have like my mixing bowls and things like that, and some more meal prep containers that don't fit in the other shelf. We'll see if we can fit them all together once I declutter. Mugs definitely need to be decluttered, but that is that cabinet. And I think that's almost it. Okay, there is a cabinet that I can't reach because I'm only 5 feet tall. Let me see. I'm gonna try. Oh, can we do it? Can we do it? Oh, we did it. Okay, there are some random glasses up here on this shelf. I don't know if I can get this one. Yes, above the microwave. There's not really much up there. Just a couple things up there. But again, it'll all be a part of the decluttering process. And then this cabinet over here is more pantry. Again, just a little sneak peek because we'll go through that. And then also part of the pantry over here, we've got spices. I will go through my utensils over there in case there's anything I'm not using anymore. Here I just have some dish rags, which we'll definitely go through. And this is like probably the most embarrassing cabinet in my entire kitchen. Oh my gosh, you guys. Oh, that's a project in and of itself. This might be its own project. This might not be a project that we do in this clean out. It's a lot. And then this is also, I consider a pantry, kid snack drawer, which needs to be restocked. And the last section in my kitchen is just under the stove, which I know is supposed to be for warming. It's probably really dirty, so whoops. But this is just pots and pans, and I probably won't be getting rid of anything in here because I use all of them. But that's it, you guys. It's not, my kitchen is not as crazy as my pantry and my fridge, but I am excited to give it a nice reorganization and declutter so that it is nice and fresh for spring. So I'm just going to take you through some of what I'm doing while the music plays because I did a lot in this kitchen. This area was definitely the area that took me the longest. I had a ton of mugs up here, a few of which I ended up donating, the rest of which I just went through and kind of organized by category, but I also had a ton of jars up here and jar lids, and so I just took all of it out and then made sure to clean it. And it had been a while since I had dusted it and cleaned it, and then I went through the process of decluttering. There's so much here, you guys. I got rid of a ton of those jars, any of the jar lids that were rusted or didn't actually have a jar to go with, or vice versa. And then I started the process of putting everything back. And as you'll see throughout this whole kind of declutter and reorganize, it definitely takes me a couple tries to figure out what works. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's important to make it work for you. So in the other areas that I'm decluttering and organizing, I do plan it all out. For this, I was really feeling what made sense for the things that I use the most often, the things I grab the most often, and it really was kind of a situation where I really just wanted to feel things out and put things up and say, okay, that makes sense, that doesn't make sense. And eventually I created a system that really works. And a couple weeks later, it is really working for me. So I'm glad I took the time to declutter and reorganize in a way that really works. Here I am going through the lunchbox packing station. For this, I really just got rid of extra utensils and things that didn't need to be in there, but this is definitely a system that actually works for me right now. Moving down to the appliances, once again, I just took everything out and I actually decided to completely reorganize the way the appliances were down there. It wasn't that it wasn't working, but I definitely had to move things around a lot to get to the things that I use the most often. So I just switched things around so the things I use the most often are more accessible. And since my whole mission in this whole declutter and reorganize is to make my kitchen as efficient as possible, it really made sense to do that. I also got rid of an old toaster that had stopped working that I had had for 12 years. Yeah, it was time for that toaster to go. So I'm just putting everything back in a way that really works for the way that I cook and the things that I use the most often, like the rice cooker and the pasta pot. And then I moved on to the drawers. Next to the containers and the mason jars, the drawers definitely needed the most work. This top drawer, it was really just getting rid of a couple things and cleaning it out. But the second drawer was a little bit more work. I definitely wanted to make that more efficient because I oftentimes found myself digging through to find the measuring spoon I needed, the measuring cup. Even though I don't do a ton of measuring in my cooking, I definitely want those to be accessible. So I put it all back in a way that works, got rid of anything that didn't make sense anymore, and it just feels so much easier to find things and grab things that I need. And ultimately, like I said, that's my ultimate goal. So I'm really, really happy about the way it turned out and the time I spent deciding what would really work. And I encourage all of you to do the same. And then, of course, there is the kids section. I got rid of a couple of plates that were kind of baby plates that kids don't use anymore, cleaned it out, and made it just a little bit easier for them to access things like the kind of sippy cups that they use. I got rid of any like utensils that are just too small for them. Wasn't a lot to do here, but what I did is working really well. Moving on to the other side of the kitchen, I didn't have a ton to do in this drawer, but I did take out any of the extra utensils that I didn't need anymore. I got rid of some old straws. I rinsed out the utensil container, and then I just went through and took out anything unnecessary and just made it easier to access things like the parchment paper and the plastic wrap. Down here was an area that wasn't quite working for me anymore. Everything was kind of jumbled and I really wanted things to be easier to access. So one of the things I did was take out anything that I don't use on a regular basis. So that includes the ice cream maker. I put that in another closet because we don't use that very often. I, of course, cleaned it out. I just made it easier to access things like the muffin tin and the cutting boards that I use. You can see my daughter running through in the background. Yes, one of my kiddos was still there with me. I put the coffee grinder back because we all know I use that several times a week. And I just went through the top shelf, got rid of anything we didn't need anymore, and anything that I could kind of reorganize. And then I went through all of my dishes. Despite being someone who is a recipe developer and does a lot of food photography, I don't think that I need dozens and dozens of dishes. We're not a big family, so to me, I really feel like we only need one or two of each item. Even if we have guests over, we can always use paper, plastic. I don't think we need to be super fancy. So I went through and took out anything I wasn't using anymore for photography or for everyday meals, and it just feels so much better to have it really all decluttered. In the cabinet above the sink, I just got rid of a couple jars I didn't need up there, and I just made it work for me. Again, it was one of those areas where things were just a little bit jumbled, and just by removing a couple things that didn't need to be in there, a couple of old bottles that just we weren't really using anymore, made it so much easier to find things. It's one of the reasons I'm really a minimalist by nature. I want to know where everything is and have a place for everything. And it's not that I don't have stuff. I have quite a few things, as you'll see. I don't just have one glass. We have several glasses and several mason jars. But I do like knowing where everything is and feeling like there is a place for everything. So I did the same thing with the glasses over here. Got rid of anything we weren't using anymore and just reorganized it. And then I moved on to the containers. This was a big area of decluttering. I got rid of any of the containers I wasn't using anymore. I organized the ones that I use most often and brought those to the front, and the ones I don't use as often and put those in the back, and just created a little bit of a new system. And last but not least, I went through and decluttered this mess of supplements and oils that I had next to the sink. I really wanted them to be easier to find. So I brought in this little oil, organizer. And so I put them in there, the ones that we use most often. I put our supplements in this old file organizer just so they're easy to find. Okay, friends, the footage for the actual kitchen clean out was abundant, to say the least. So I decided to split this video into two. So I am going to pause for now, leave you guys in a little bit of suspense, and we're gonna come back in a couple days and I'm gonna share with you my full kitchen tour, my most efficient kitchen that I have just really refreshed so that it works really well for me and my family for living the healthy, balanced life that we want to live. If you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed the clean out and you are excited to see the refresh and the tour of the kitchen, give me a like down below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for new videos every week. And if you haven't yet joined us in this free Spring Clean Your Kitchen Challenge, come and join us. I'll put the link in the description box below. We are spending the entire month cleaning out, decluttering, and refreshing our kitchens, our fridge, our freezer, and our pantry so that we can have the most efficient kitchen for living our healthy, balanced life. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in my kitchen tour in the next video.